Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel, Peter Watches TV, where I watch all the TV shows and then I come over here and I react to them. And today we're going to talk about the newest episode of 1,000 Pound Sisters. But I have so many shows that I have to cover over here. You guys, I have so many true crime shows that I haven't even reacted to over here that I watched. I watched Southern Fried Lies. I watched The Bakersfield 3. I have to cover those shows in the next couple days. Tonight, I am going to watch the new show on TLC, which is called 1,000 Pound Roomies. I've actually heard it's really, really good. And then a lot of people have been asking me to watch and react to Bravo's New Generation, which is basically all the kids from the Housewives and Bravo shows and stuff like that. So I think Meredith Marks' son, Brooks from Salt Lake City, he's on it. Candy Burris is from Atlanta. Her daughter Riley is on it. So I'm going to watch those shows and I'll be reacting to them. I also still have to watch, I just saw today that the reunion is like July 1st. For the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, so I have to watch all of that and react to that. I've got a lot of TV to watch over here. Right now, I am currently watching The Pit, which has been on my list for quite some time. People send me shows all the time, they're like, you have to watch this, I add it. I'll just say, it's on my list, or I'm adding it to my list. But The Pit has been on my list for quite some time, and I started watching it a couple days ago, and I think I'm on episode 10 right now, which means I have 6 episodes left, and I just cannot stop watching it. It is so fantastic. It's my new favorite show right now. So if you're looking for, I will say that I think that if you have issues with like health anxiety, medical anxiety, and stuff like that, it probably would be triggering for you because it's a show about an emergency room. But it is so fantastically done. So today, though, we're going to talk about the newest episode of 1,000 Pound Sisters. So you ready? Here we go. Here we go. Here we go again. What is my weakness? Tammy Slayton. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Tammy Slayton's skin removal surgery, which was what this entire episode was about, and Amy losing her mind yet again over the fact that nobody wants to go to her spooky wedding at the closed down sanitarium, Waverly Hills. That's what this week's episode was about. I have to tell you that before I went into this, I thought that this was the last episode of the season because I Google searched last week to see why it wasn't on. And I think I Googled something like, because I knew that last week's was Polyfamily's finale and stuff like that. So I Googled, when I found out that it was Polyfamily's finale, I Googled like the finale of season 7 of Sister Wives, and it said this week. It said June 3rd. And I was like, that doesn't seem right to me. And I went in and I looked last night, and this was, I believe, the 7th episode. So this was the 7th episode, and the previous season, the first seasons had like 6 or 7 episodes, but the last season had 11 episodes. I'm not really sure why 1,000 Pound Sisters doesn't get 20 and 24 episodes like Sister Wives. I would live for it all day long. But, they're only at 7 episodes, and then when I watched the episode last night, at the end, it said on the next episode, and it's, you know, Amy crying again because nobody wants to come to her wedding, and nobody shows up for Amy and all this kind of stuff. It's really interesting to me watching it, how Tammy at the beginning of the show, like Amy was the one leading like the weight loss journey and all this kind of stuff, and it was really, like it was Amy's show, and it's kind of turned into Tammy's show. I think Amy's a little bitter about that, and that, you know, Amy is the one that's really not doing anything for herself at this point, and she's the one that's complaining and crying and being upset all the time, and her and Tammy have kind of switched roles in the show. It's interesting. But next week, supposedly there's going to be an episode, so I couldn't find anywhere. TLC shows, it's very hard to find out if the season's been renewed, when the new season's going to start, if it's been canceled. So if anybody knows how many episodes the season's going to have, let me know in the comment section below. Okay, so let's get into this week's episode. 1,000 Pound Sisters, this was this week's episode. It starts with Chris taking Amy and Brian to their lawyer's office to go over the plea deal that they're signing because they're going to court. They've agreed to a plea deal, and so they're going to court for their sentencing and acceptance of the plea deal. So Chris takes them there. She says that the only sibling that is there for her is Chris. And she says, if I can't count on them coming to my wedding, then I sure as hell can't count on them going to court. And she says it makes her really sad because she would show up for any of them if they were going to court. So then the attorney explains like what the plea bargain is. Amy doesn't even really understand what a plea bargain is. I mean, the producers ask her, and she says, I think a plea bargain is when you take, like, you know, you plead guilty and take a lesser charge so that you don't get with it. And she understands it, but, like, she says on there, I don't really even understand what a plea deal is. I think that might be something that you want to understand before you accept it and sign your name to it. But anyway, It's an amended felony drug charge down to possession of a Schedule 6 drug. Now, I looked it up because their original charges were possession of marijuana, possession of mushrooms, and child endangerment. Okay, so it goes on, and it's interesting because the attorney on the show, he says to her, he says, basically, you're just admitting that you had some of that substance. He doesn't say marijuana. He doesn't say mushrooms. On the show, she just said marijuana. She never said anything about the mushrooms, but the mushrooms were in the legal report, or in the police report, and so was the charge of child endangerment, which they have yet to discuss on the show, which, again, it's TLC production. They let these people get away with all kinds of bullshit. It's interesting to me because at one point in the show, Amy said that she's gained a lot of weight since she stopped smoking pot. And I'm like, well, we never even knew you smoked pot until you got arrested for pot in your car. We never knew you smoked pot. So now you're just regularly talking about smoking pot, quitting smoking pot, having pot for your back problems, things like that. We never knew that Amy Slayton smoked cigarettes, okay, until she got caught on a live stream on TikTok with her kid in her lap smoking cigarettes. It was only after that that they started showing them smoking on the show. Tammy's vaping never came up in the show until it was going to affect her surgeries. So it's weird to me, TLC production, like, they won't call it a reality show, but they don't really show us what's truly going on at all. And they really are very guarded for these people. It's really interesting to me. It's like, what's Amy going to say to you? Fuck you, I'm not going to be on the show. Okay, well, she don't get a paycheck then. Then don't have her be on the show anymore, It's like, I don't really know. I mean, but now for Amy to so blatantly say she's gained weight since she quit smoking pot. We never knew you were, as viewers, we never knew you were regularly smoking pot before because you never brought that around on the show, okay? You never said, I have back problems and so I have to do marijuana treatments for, that sounds so, as an addict of over 30 years that chronically smoked pot back in the day. I don't know what a marijuana treatment is, but whatever, okay? She never brought that to the show before she got arrested. This is why they all seem like a bunch of liars, And they wonder why people think they're liars. This is why, okay? Don't blame it on the edit when y'all aren't willing to talk about this shit on the show. So the attorney explains it to her that it's a Schedule 6 drug. Now, I did look this up because I wanted to see how in Kentucky they define a Schedule 6 drug. A Schedule 6 drug in Kentucky are typically those considered to have a lower potential for abuse compared to higher schedules. Marijuana is the most commonly known Schedule 6 substance, and it is marijuana. Other substances, Schedule 6 can also include other unconventional recreational drugs, and so it goes on there and talks about that. So it could just be the marijuana charge on there. And maybe Brian got charged, because they don't really talk much about Brian's charges, her fiance. They only talk about Amy's charges. So I don't know, but I am almost positive that Amy got charged with child endangerment and 2 possession charges. So am I wrong about that? I think that's what originally came out. So anyway, so basically he said to her, you're just admitting that you had some of that substance around you, is what she's admitting to. She doesn't really understand what a plea deal is, she says. They go to the sentencing hearing. I thought it was interesting that for the sentencing hearing, she had on like khakis, a red t-shirt, and this flannel coat. When they had this whole thing about her buying this suit, and she said she was going to wear the suit to court. I mean, I think maybe going to a sentencing hearing might be when you really want to kind of try to look nice. I mean, she had her hair up in this messy ponytail bun, and anyway, so they give her supervised probation in Tennessee for 2 years. The judge accepts her plea, and Amy says she's relieved, and the probation is for 2 years. They have to have an alcohol and drug assessment. They have to go to parenting classes, and they get fines. Amy pays all of her fines there, but Brian can't afford to pay all of his fines. I don't know how much they got. Does anybody know? I mean, that would have been easy to look up, but they're also banned from the safari. At the very end of the sentencing hearing, the prosecutor says, and also the safari park has asked that they be banned from the park for life or something like that. Amy says she could give a shit. She goes, I banned myself the second that camel bit me. And she goes, ban me, bitches. So then they're outside, and Chris calls Tammy to let her know what's going on with all this kind of stuff, with the court stuff. Tammy says she's very, very relieved, and that she hopes that Amy takes this to heart and takes it very seriously. Brian goes, we're done with that life, yo. Chris says that Amy's mugshot should keep her out of jail, which, by the way, I took a picture for you guys. Now, I know a couple videos ago, I forgot to include the picture of Amy's dirty feet, but I do have a picture of Amy. Hold on a second. What am I doing? I do have a picture of Amy's mugshot right here in case you want to see it, okay? That's Amy's mugshot that Chris says should keep her out of jail. I do believe, because I just sent it to somebody the other day, that I still do have in my phone the picture of Amy's dirty feet. Where is it at? I just sent it to somebody the other day. Hold on, where is it at? Amy's dirty feet, here they are. In case you missed Amy's dirty feet on the previous episode, I forgot to include it in my video. There they are. Amy should be arrested for those dirty feet alone, is what I think. So anyway, they're driving back. Tammy's got her surgery date for skin removal in Pittsburgh set. Amy talks about she's like, well, when I have my skin removal, and Chris just kind of side-eyes her like, what? Like, Amy hasn't talked about being on a weight loss diet, working out, losing. She hasn't talked about anything in probably 2 good seasons now. So now she's talking about getting her skin removal. Chris says she's gained so much weight that she's like in her own reality, that she thinks that she's ready for skin removal surgery. And they have this whole conversation about Tammy, or I think Amy said she weighs something like 250 now. At the final operation, when they go in for the pre-op for Tammy, Tammy weighs 201 pounds. So she is 49 pounds thinner than Amy at this point. Chris is thinner than Amy. They're all thinner than Amy, and Amy is the one that the show started with. It's interesting to me that you have a show built around this woman's weight loss and having weight loss surgery, and none of the production ever forces her to talk about weight loss, seeing Dr. Smith. I mean, with Tammy, they rode Tammy's, and you know what? And great, because Tammy's doing fantastic today. But there were entire episodes that were so hard to watch because that family rode Tammy's ass so hard. She was in rehab programs. She was seeing doctors all the time. I can remember when to watch them just like go to the airport in the van and Tammy sitting in the front seat. Do you guys remember when they would like go down to Atlanta to go see the first doctor, and Tammy would be in the back seat with the chairs removed, laying on the floor? I mean, you want to talk about the amazing progress that Queen Tammy has made. It is so inspiring. You know, the fact that Amy is unwilling, they're making the whole storyline about Amy and this guy getting married. What about, I mean, the whole show started as 1,000-pound sisters, with Amy and Tammy being on this weight loss journey and Amy losing weight and getting the surgery. And she don't even talk about it anymore. So here she is, and she's in the car talking about when she gets her skin removal surgery. Chris looks at her. I'm glad he did. I was thinking, girl, when? Like, you haven't even seen a doctor in years. Like, you haven't kept up with this at all. She says, and he says she's not ready for skin removal surgery. Brian says that their issues are SODIes. I was like, oh, miss me with this bullshit, seriously. By the way, I did not know. I was like, where did I recently miss this or pick up this, miss me with this and miss me with that? Like, not just on video, but in my daily life to people all the time. I'm like, baby, miss me with that bullshit. I was like, where did I pick it up? And this episode confirmed for me that I picked it up from Miss Amanda Halterman. Okay, Amanda Halterman says about 6 times in the show, miss me with that shit, miss me with that shit. Now, it is Amanda's fault that I am talking like I'm straight out of Kentucky. I am 2 hours north of them. But anyway, so Brian leans in, he's like in the back seat, and he's like, our main problem, SODIes. And I wanted to say, well, 7 seasons ago, your main problem was SODIes, okay? Because I can't get on Instagram. And I just saw this thing the other day. Y'all seen those baby things that imitate the reality stars? It's the baby AI. They had these babies, oh my God, I don't even know where it was, doing the Amy Slayton and Tammy Slayton talking about the SODIes. And they drinks 8 SODIes a day. And that Amy said that her mom told her that if you eat a sugar, drink a diet soda and it cancels it out. So here we are 7 seasons later, okay? Amy's gained weight. She's talking about skin removal surgery. And she's still drinking SODIes, okay? Now, you know, Brian's super thin. He don't have to worry. You can tell he doesn't really have to worry about his weight whatsoever. He says they like their pop. Well, Amy knows that that's a problem for her. This has been whole seasons we talked about pop, okay? Amy says her diet went to hell as soon as she stopped smoking weed. I'm like, girl, when, okay? Because you got arrested last year. So did you stop smoking pot that second? Because you've been gaining weight progressively. And listen, this is a weight show, okay? This is a show called 1,000-Pound Sisters. It isn't called Sisters We Want to Hang Out With at the Safari Park, okay, and get bit by camels. It's called 1,000-Pound Sisters. The show is built around their weight loss and their weight loss journey, okay? So I think it's fair to critique and have discussions about this. Amy says she didn't start gaining weight until after she smoked pot. When did you stop smoking pot, Amy? Okay? The day you got arrested? Because you had gained weight long before that. So there's no honesty on this show as far as when it comes to Amy, okay? And then she says, Chris scolds her like she's a little kid. And because he's like going off on her and he's like, you need to get back on your diet track and things like that. And he says he'll be on Brian if he brings in food and that she's not supposed to have. And Amy goes off about it. And I'm like, wait a second, okay? When Tammy was dating those guys that were bringing food around her, Amy went off on the guy. Chris went off on the guy. When Tammy wasn't walking her steps and she had to walk 70 steps a day in that house, Amy was on her, okay? They were all on her. So now that Amy's the one that's not doing what she's supposed to do, she's pissed at the other siblings that have all... Misty's done her weight loss and lost it. Tammy's doing fantastic. Amanda, I mean, she goes up and down, but she still talks about it. Brittany wants to do the gastric bypass. Chris has lost an extraordinary amount of weight and has done his skin removal surgery. Amy is the only one that has not kept up on the show. So do I think it's fair that they critique her and it's a weight loss show? 100,000%. Absolutely, I think it's fair. I think it's ridiculous that she would expect otherwise. So then they're at Tammy's going away dinner for her surgery to celebrate. This restaurant looks real cute that they were at. It's like a French restaurant. Amy says she don't know any French words except for, what does she say? She says bonjour, but she says bonjour or something like that. I thought she was going to say, what's the word? Why can't I think of it now? The song. Menage a trois. I thought she was going to say the only French word she knows was a menage a trois. All the siblings are there. Amy said she's there for Tammy, even though Tammy's never there for her. I'm like, Tammy's been there for you a lot, Amy. Come on now. Brian shows up. They talk about the court situation. Misty thinks they got off way too easy. And she's like, I think they got off way too easy. I don't know that I think they got off way too easy, but I think they got off, I mean, I've been sober for 30 years. I have a lot of friends of mine on paper that are on court systems and constantly in drug court and things like that. I think they got off as what's expected for a first drug possession charge. I don't know how much they had on them and things. The child endangerment thing is what's interesting to me. That social workers didn't get involved, that they didn't have to do a home assessment. If that were the case and TLC chose not to show that, I think that is really detriment to enable. Then TLC production is enabling Amy on being not making good parenting choices. I mean, if they're going to have a social worker come in, when they've made these people talk to therapists and stuff on the show, if they got a charge of child endangerment, a social worker would have to come in and assess the home environment, okay? If that were the case, then... I mean, she never talks about Brian, or Michael. She never talks about their co-parenting, ever. She talked about it on episode 1. She has yet to talk about their co-parenting. She has yet to talk about how the boys are when they're with Michael for the weekend. I mean, these are normal things you hear on reality shows, okay? She never talks about him anymore. And TLC, you would think that some kind of social worker, case manager would have come in and done a home evaluation if she got a child endangerment charge. And none of that happened. So I'm not surprised that they got off on 2 years of probation. I actually think 2 years of probation for a possession charge of marijuana is pretty stiff, honestly. I think it's pretty harsh, honestly, for possession of marijuana. I mean, Chris was like, you could go to prison for 30 years. On a possession of marijuana charge, I don't know what true crimes he's reading, but that's not the case. They asked Tammy why Andrea's not there. And they say that Andrea couldn't come because of work. I hope towards the end of the season we get to see more of Andrea. I really like Andrea. She also says that she can't go to the surgery in Pittsburgh with her because she has to work. Amy and Amanda and Chris are going to go to the surgery in Pittsburgh. She's afraid of the pain, and she's also afraid of how she'll look afterwards and that she won't, like, know herself or recognize herself. She said it's scary but rewarding at the same time. She said she doesn't know how she's going to feel. Amy says she's going to go see Dr. Smith to see where she's at. They all just kind of look at her at this point, kind of like, okay, like, what do you want us to say, Amy? And she says, I got a wedding dress to fit in. Tammy says that she's proud of her for going back to see Dr. Smith. And then it goes in this whole thing about Tammy weighing less than Amy. And then Tammy says something about, you seemed kind of upset with me the last time, which would have been about the dress shopping thing or the suit shopping thing. She said that she can tell that it bothers her. She says Amy seemed upset at the store. Amy says she starts getting real upset in the confessional. And she says that she doesn't know how she feels and she's happy for Tammy. And then she starts crying and says that Tammy doesn't know how she feels and she's putting her feelings on her and all this kind of stuff, and she's just happy for Tammy that she's getting her weight loss surgery. I believe that both can be true at the same time. I believe that Amy can be happy for Tammy as her sister and that she loves her, and I do believe that. I also believe that Amy can be jealous or be upset with herself or be disappointed in herself, but we don't ever get that kind of real on this show with Amy. Never. I don't know why. And I think the problem is that we see the meltdowns and the breakdowns of Amy Slayton, but production won't let us see the compassionate moments either with her. If they would show that to us of like, well, Amy, how do you feel about having gained so much weight, and put her and let her break down and get upset about it, then we would maybe feel compassionate for Amy the way that we feel compassionate for Tammy. But production doesn't do that. And so what production has done is they've pitted Amy and Tammy against each other in the eyes of the viewer. Even if it's not true in real life, it's how it seems on the show. Tammy says she's afraid of what could happen on the operating table. Amanda and Misty are talking, and they talk about how there's serious complications and she's had medical issues in the past. Tammy says something, she just wants to leave them all laughs in case, basically like if she dies on the operating table, she wants them all to remember her that way. They're flying to Pittsburgh for the surgery. Amanda is driving. They're going to stay there for 3 nights. Chris says he expects drama whenever this group is together. He just doesn't know who's going to pop off. Tammy feels sick. She's really, really nervous. Amy is snoring in the back seat. Then they're in Pittsburgh, and Tammy is meeting with the doctor for the pre-op appointment. She's 201 pounds. I mean, she's just like, it's just such a moment. She's so mesmerized. She can't remember the last time that she was that small. She said elementary school is what Chris says. They go over the plan. They're going to do the skin on the chin and the neck, and then the arms and the lower part of the belly. They can't do everything at once. So they have to focus on the highest priorities. The doctor talks about how Tammy really wants her thighs done, but they can't do all of it at the same time. Because they have to, like I said, focus on the highest priorities. It's a 7-hour or more surgery, so she'll be in the hospital for 2 days afterwards for recovery. She's got a lot of fears. She doesn't want to wake up and have to depend on anyone after this if something goes wrong with the surgery. And her biggest fear is being who she used to be. And I thought this was so profound when she said it, and having to depend on everybody else again. So then it's surgery day. She's excited and she's nervous. Amanda shows up and then in the hotel room, and Tammy starts crying immediately. She's scared. Amanda hugs her. And Amanda says she makes her really happy because a year ago they weren't even talking. And now Tammy is just vulnerable with her. And I think that's one of those moments that makes me really love the show, is to see that camaraderie between the siblings. They take Tammy back at the hospital. Everyone's really, really tired. They talk about Amy always sleeping all the time. And Amy says they're always telling her what she's doing wrong. Amanda says not to pop off on her or something like that. Because Amanda says, why don't you just use the CPAP machine? You should start using the CPAP machine, sis. And Amy's like, I'm so tired of people going off on me all the time. People don't want to come. You don't even want to come to my wedding. It's like, Amy, what is going on with you? What is going on with you? You know? And so she's like, so she walks out of the room. They talk about how there's going to be as many as 12 people working on Tammy at the same time. They give the family a moment with her, and Amanda prays over Tammy. They're all praying over her. They're all nervous for her. Amy, Chris, and Tammy go back to the hotel. Amy wants to go back to sleep. So she goes back to sleep. Back at the hotel, Amanda and Chris are talking. They're both really worried. Chris isn't really talking much, and Amanda's kind of like, why aren't you talking to me? Like, you always got something to say. She asks him if he wants to play pool, and he says he doesn't want to do anything. He has a migraine. And then she asks him if his head hurts. And he says, you are the dumbest blonde MFer I have ever seen. And it's just like the tensions are so high, and they start going off on each other because he's like, I said I had a migraine. Why would you ask if my head hurt? Then they get an update. Everything's going well. Amanda starts joking and makes a joke about, because they talked about how they finished one side of the face and she's going to be lopsided. Chris doesn't think it's funny at all. He goes off and gets pissed, and then they get into it again. Amanda walks out. Then Amanda comes back in. They all just want Tammy to be okay. It's just they're worried, and it's the fear of all of it. Amy comes in. She sits down in the chair, and she falls asleep again. Chris says her nickname should be Snore Lord because she's always asleep. They get another update, and it's good, and they tell them that they should head over to the hospital in a few hours. Chris calls her mom to let her know what's going on. And then Amy, while he's on the phone to her mom, she farts. Like, and sometimes it's really funny, but the tensions are real high at this moment. Amy farts, and then Amanda gets pissed, and Amy gets up and she goes, damn, I'm only human. Like, what am I supposed to do? Control my fart? She doesn't say all that, but then she walks out, and she says she's overwhelmed because her siblings are always coming for her. And then Amanda tells Chris he needs to get Amy on a fucking leash. She's like, she goes, you need to get her on your sister on a fucking leash. And she goes, for her to come in here and fucking pass gas and not even say she's sorry. I do think it's kind of weird. I mean, that she just sits there and they're talking to her mom on the phone about Tammy's surgery, and Amy's just leaning over and she's like, And it's like, and Amanda's like, damn. I mean, she's like, doesn't make a big deal of it. She's just like, it's so gross smelling. And then Amy goes, it's not funny. It's like, it's funny on all the other episodes, but this episode, it wasn't funny. And she's like, damn. And then like, Amy gets mad about it. And she's like her, the next episode they show Amy going off to Brian talking about how Amanda said her farts don't stink. I mean, first of all, it's crass. Second of all, maybe timing. Second of all, if you fart, then just go, hey, I'm sorry. Like, you know what I mean? So I agree with Amanda that she said, she even say that she's sorry. Amy starts crying and bawling out in the hall, and she says she's going home. She says as soon as Tammy's awake, she's done. She don't even care because none of them are coming to her wedding anyhow. Chris is like, oh, so this is what it's about. This is what your attitude is about, the wedding. She says Tammy wanted her to cancel the wedding, so she canceled it. And I was like, I didn't hear that on the show. Chris is like, Tammy never said that to you, Amy. And so she's lying. She's lying about Tammy, saying, on the day of Tammy's surgery, okay, that Tammy might not make it out of it, Amy is lying about Tammy and saying, Tammy told me to cancel the wedding. But they didn't show that on air. So if it happened, it didn't happen on camera. And Chris is like, that is not what she said. That's not what any of us said. We didn't tell you to cancel the wedding. We told you we didn't want to come to the wedding if it was in a sanitarium because that does not align with our belief systems. And Amy's like, well, you got married in a church and that doesn't align with my belief systems, but I showed up anyway, which I think is a fair argument. And Chris is like, well, that was your choice. That was your choice that you compromised your belief systems. I'm not willing to do that. And I actually thought this was like a really mature conversation, what he said. You know, he's like, that if you would have said, I don't want to come to your wedding because I don't want to go to a church, I would have respected that. But you compromised your beliefs. So that's on you, Amy. That's not on me. That's basically what Chris said. I was like, well, I agree. I kind of agree with that. He said they all support her. They just don't want to go to this sanitarium that's closed down. Amy says she compromised. Okay. So then she says that they don't know how much they hurt her by saying that she wasn't going to go, they weren't going to go to her wedding. Chris looks at her and he goes, it is just not the time for this. He was like, Tammy is an operating room. This is just not the time for this. We're not doing this today. And then it ends and it shows next week. And so anyway, that was this week's episode. Woo! I'm hot now. Hot. I'm hot. That was a lot this week. Anyway, let me know what you thought in the comment section below. Any shows you want me to cover, put in the comment section below. I'm always open to covering anything. I've got on my list the Tylenol murders. I've got some other true crime on my list. Let me know in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.